No. Go into the other room if you're going to do that. Okay. Let it charge. It has to charge, okay? Here, take my phone. Take my phone. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Runke Raji and I am a human being just existing online. What we're going to be talking about today is the truth about motherhood. I'm going to be sharing my experiences as well as giving you guys tips and tricks along the way that I picked up and struggles that I went through, as well as certain things that I feel like aren't explained about motherhood. Everybody's version of motherhood is different, and I feel like this is a perfect time to talk about this, especially because Mother's Day is on, is it on Saturday? Is it on Saturday? It is on Sunday. Always knew that I wanted to be a mom. I really truly believe that there's nothing that I can explain. It's just like people just knowing they never want kids. It's like I just knew that I wanted kids. Like I did not know anything about marriage. I did not know anything about anything. I just knew that I had this soul feeling that I wanted to be a mom, and people who knew me even from high school knew that I wanted to be a mom. I used to work at a daycare. Even the way I went about schooling, you know, the reason why I wanted to do psychology is because I wanted to work more with kids, and I just really felt this strong pull. Now, the truth is I had a long-term partner and everything, and I didn't really think of waiting after I got married to have kids because, again, that was one of my big goals. I wanted to have children, and I never even knew much about having children aside from the fact that I had babysat, you know, I had worked at daycares before, I had been around children, and I had even had situations where I had watched somebody go into labor, and all those things never discouraged me from having children. So mentally, I felt prepared. I'm not gonna lie, like even though my kids are now 3 years old, both of them are 3 years old, even though Amari is gonna be 4 in June, but I think that this is the first year since the beginning of my motherhood journey that I've actually been okay enough to talk about this in a balanced mindset, and to even talk about this where I don't feel so emotional. This idea in the back of my mind that I was going to be infertile. I don't know who gave me that idea. And even though you can do all this research, practical and theory are two different things. And when I tell you that is really how motherhood was for me, that's how it was. So the motherhood journey started for me shortly after I got married, and this is something that I've actually never shared on my YouTube. And it's so funny because what has actually prompted me to share this was because on April 1st, let me tell you something about me. I'm a very silly, goofy person. What I mean by that is I'm somebody who is really, really playful. Like once you get to know me, and honestly, not even once you get to know me, in general, I'm a very, very playful person. That joke, obviously, again, lighthearted, something that I didn't really think too much about. But there were a lot of comments that were like, you know, hey, like, this isn't like really funny and things like that. And like I said, you know, sometimes I do certain things and I don't expect it to get so much outrage because I'm just like, look, I'm just out here having fun, and sometimes it's just like that. At the end of the day, let's be real, not everybody can agree with everybody online, especially. Made me think, and you know, I had to share my own story of like, hey guys, like this is what happened to me. And you know, I kind of understand that, which is why I took the post down at the end of the day, because I just realized, I was like, because it's not triggering for you doesn't mean it's not triggering for other people. I got married, I think that was like 2018, 2019, and I had found out I was pregnant actually right after my wedding. Right after, like literally the day after my wedding. Actually, I came back because I had a destination wedding, so I came back from the destination that we went and I found out I was pregnant. My first thought was, oh my God, wow, God's blessings, I'm so grateful, that kind of thing. I started buying baby clothes, did feel sick, which is why I took the pregnancy test in the first place. I didn't feel like myself. I wasn't really sure what it was. So I was like, all right, let me just take a pregnancy test. And that's how I found out I was pregnant. Confirmed with the doctor, everything was good. But I had doubts in my mind. I don't know why, but I don't know, maybe it was because it was so soon and, I wasn't really expecting it and things like that. So a couple of weeks after, I remember it was like a weekend. It was like a Friday. And I just felt like something was wrong. I had started bleeding, and that's something that you never want to see. So I had called the doctor's office and told them like, hey, I'm bleeding and things like that. They were like, well, go through the weekend. And the only reason why I remember it was the weekend is because they told me to go through the weekend and, maybe it might not be anything wrong or anything like that. And I guess also why I was really worried about having kids was because I always had very inconsistent periods. So I just assumed that was going to affect my fertility. And I'd actually been told that might affect my fertility, which is why I was like, all right, but let's get on this. Hi, baby. Let's get on this journey as quickly as possible. I'm just literally researching like what's going on. Like, there's a lot of women online, and which is why I feel it's so important to have an online community that we can freely talk about these certain things. As women, we can feel so alone in the struggles that we go through. And I just really truly feel like I'm one of those people who I love being vulnerable and I love being open, because I truly feel like one of my passions is sharing to help other people. So I'm researching, and I'm so grateful for all the women online. I don't even know half of them, but just seeing other women be like, hey, like I bled also, and this is what happened, and going on all these forums trying to figure out like, why am I bleeding? What's going on? So at the end of the day, I just, because some women said like it might be normal and everything, I just chucked it up to like it might be normal. However, things started getting progressively worse. I started cramping, so much pain, and I think at this point they had estimated like I was like 5-6 weeks along, and I was confused because I was like, okay, this cramping and all these things, it can't be normal. At this point I'm filling up pads, that kind of thing. And I know this is TMI, but like just to like express, because I know a lot of people would not want to talk about this. And it was just such a weird and devastating time for me. And especially as a Nigerian woman, I think this is something that we don't talk about enough. I actually was talking to another person about this, and I remember talking to them and being like, why don't we talk about these things? Like, this is real life information that can help other women out here who might be struggling with the same things. Like, this is things that we need to talk about in our community so that we don't keep falling into the same things or doing the same things over without actually understanding what we're getting ready for and prepared for. So to the doctor, and the doctor was just like, yeah, you have gone through a miscarriage, something called a chemical pregnancy. And honestly, even that term alone is so far-fetched because it just gives sterile, and I really didn't like it. I grieved a lot. I actually didn't realize how much grieving was even needed until I grieved a little bit more even last year, even though I did have 2 children. The loss of a child, no matter how far along, especially if it was attached to your body, is always going to be some type of grieving process, and I was extremely sad. It took me a while to recover from that. But I tried to move on, and God is always faithful. A couple of months later, I actually did get pregnant with Amar, my firstborn, and that was very difficult for me because I had been through loss first. I just went through the whole pregnancy with so much fear. Fear of like rolling over, fear of just so much fear in my pregnancy. And aside from that, my symptoms weren't really the normal symptoms of just like, throwing up and things like that. I think a lot of my symptoms were more like mentally. I think I really went through a lot mentally when I was pregnant. It was a very, very lonely lonely time because nobody could really identify with what I was going through, because obviously if you hadn't been through it, you don't know how I was feeling, which is like, at the end of the day, it's really just the reality of things. So, you know, it was a very lonely time for me. I felt very alone because this was the first pregnancy I'd ever had, and I had all these fears. And then to top it all off, I had gestational diabetes, which I talked about in my video a couple of years ago when I talked about my pregnancy with Amari. And just the whole gestational diabetes and things like that, I had to be put on a meal plan. I don't know if you guys really are familiar with gestational diabetes, but it's basically diabetes that is present mostly when you are pregnant. So what that was for me is I had to test my blood sugar all the time, every hour, or 3 times during the day, actually, not every hour, but 3 times during the day I had to test my blood sugar. And aside from testing my blood sugar, I also had to make sure that I was eating a certain weight of food, certain types of carbs, so that my blood sugar won't spike, so that it won't affect the baby and things like that. And I just really didn't understand, you know, even at my baby shower, I was really scared to eat because there's a lot of candy, you know, the pregnancy. I was like, bro, get this baby out of me. So I remember the day before Amari was born, the whole gestational diabetes thing was really, really hard on me. So I ended up, they ended up saying like, okay, you might have to go on insulin, which means like I would have to like literally inject myself with insulin. Like, no, pregnancy is already stressful enough. Now you're telling me to inject myself with insulin? Absolutely not. I think Amari also agreed, because literally the next day after they put me on insulin, I didn't even pick up the prescription. Amari said, I'm a leave. I'm inject myself. So Amari was actually due in July. He was due July 14th, I think. I can't really remember. But he came a whole month early. Now, this is another part of motherhood that I don't think people really prepare you for, is the fact that pregnancy and birth does not go as planned. Pregnancy and childbirth is very, very much prepare for anything, just go in with an open mind, because going in with an open mind rather than trying to structure everything will prevent you so much more for disappointment. I was one of those hypnobirthing people. Like, I literally listened to like a lot of hypnobirthing and things like that. Not to say it didn't help, it definitely did. But now that I've had 2 kids, which I will go ahead and talk about my second pregnancy, it very much interesting. And I also feel like, honestly, we're not taught about, well, I won't say we, maybe me. I didn't know as much as I thought I knew about pregnancy and childbirth and things like that. And what's crazy is delivery, I already have like a labor and delivery story that I have on my channel, but it was pretty fast with Amari, especially because he was a month early. And I think honestly, all the stress I was under, because it was my first pregnancy, the fear of having lost a pregnancy before that, it was just a lot of fear. And I think that's really what triggered my body to just be like, all right, this is way too much for me. I think I just need to remove our tenant. So I thought pregnancy was the hardest thing. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's a damn lie. Because y'all, when this child came out, I was even more stressed than when I was pregnant. Because when Amari first got here, thank God he didn't have to go to the NICU, because a lot of times when babies are born early, sometimes they have to go to the NICU. He was pretty early, you know, but he was still fine and things like that. He did have a little bit of jaundice, which is pretty normal sometimes for babies. But the thing that really, really triggered me was that Amari wasn't able to latch in the hospital when it came to breastfeeding. And breastfeeding was one of the hardest things that I never even prepared for. That was one of the things that I never even thought was a thing. I never even thought that was a thing that I needed to even prepare for, because funny enough, the hospital that I given birth in, they had actually told me that there was a breastfeeding class that was being offered. And weirdly enough, the week before I gave birth to Amari was the week after was the breastfeeding class. But I was just like, I beg you, it's okay, the baby's already here, that kind of thing. How hard can breastfeeding be? It's not breast milk. I think I've even talked about this before. No. I think that it was one of the most challenging things that I've been through as a mom, especially with Amari, because he wasn't latching preterm. Yes, late preterm babies. But what they don't tell you about Amari, what they don't tell you about late preterm babies is that they sleep a lot and you have to wake them up to eat. And aside from that, sometimes they don't have a very strong sucking reflex. Moms who really wanted to do the whole breastfeeding thing, I thought about this organic way that I wanted to do my motherhood, and I really was stuck on breastfeeding. And I would do all these things to like try to get him to latch, and to top it all off, I wasn't even producing that much. It was just a lot of things altogether. I ended up going to a breastfeeding class where we would weigh the baby, and the baby, will just try to latch. It just became a lot. And then to top it all off, he was losing weight, especially in the first couple of days or weeks after he was born. They needed to keep monitoring his weight because he wasn't gaining weight. And obviously, if breastfeeding isn't working, you feel like you failed as a mom. And I literally was at a point where I was just like, please, what is going on? I did have baby blues again also because, sometimes you're in that place where you mourn your old life, and I didn't realize that I was gonna have to be attached to this child day in and day out, waking up every 2 hours to breastfeed, or, the baby wasn't sleeping through the night. And it was just such a happy, sad time. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm so happy that I have a kid, and there were these moments where I'll just stare at him and be like, oh my God, I love you so much. But there were these other moments where I'm like, please, can we retweet? Jokes. So it was one of those things that was very shocking for me, especially being a first-time mom. And I think that, again, another thing I've never actually talked about on here is I am more interested in my baby gaining weight than what I believe is better. And thankfully, I was a part of just this wonderful Mommy and Me group that one of my friends had started that really helped me. And as a mom, it's so important to have community of other moms, if online or wherever you can find it. It is very, very important, because at the end of the day, motherhood is never to be done alone. And sometimes your village might not necessarily be just your family. Your village could also be your friends or even other mothers, because at the end of the day, we might not know so much about each other, but we know that we've been through the same things or similar, and I feel like that's always very important. So Amari, I was just, I was like, okay, settling into motherhood. It took me a while to settle into motherhood, but I definitely did take a break. After I gave birth to Amari, I took a 1 month break off social media and everything, because I just wanted to figure motherhood out, and Amari, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, was such a chill kid. Like, he was very relaxed, very, he didn't cry a lot. I didn't realize once I had a mama. I'm not gonna lie, but he was a very relaxed kid. He kind of helped me in my transition into motherhood. Just the way he was, after the breastfeeding thing, after that, everything went relaxed. I mean, he was eating okay, everything. Obviously, I didn't know anything about baby-led weaning or anything like that, so Amari honestly started eating very, very late. Anyway, what I feel like I wasn't really prepared for, though, aside from the fact that the baby is attached to my hip, is that the baby is my sole responsibility, no matter if I had help or not. And that's something that people don't talk about, because you go from being a woman who can do anything you want at any time to being a woman that you have to take a baby everywhere. And sometimes taking a baby out is not just about, oh, I'm gonna take the baby out, it's gonna be so cute. Yes, if the baby's not walking, if the baby's not a toddler, it's a little easier to just put the baby in the pram, go. But also, you never know what stimuli that the baby will react to. Sometimes the baby will, when you're stuck in the house for 2 months after you even give birth, so it's a little different. But at the same time, I will say this piece of, from somebody who really did not even think they could have kids to having a child, I would not change anything about this whole process. Even though it sounds stressful, even though it sounds frustrating, even though I cannot remember the labor pains, and I'm really out here talking about how I may or may not have another child, I really truly believe that it is a process that changed me as a person, and it's a process that I really feel like gave me a different sense of self, and it really matured me in a way that I never think that I would have matured if I did not have children. So that was Amari. 6 months later, nobody told me this, but if you're breastfeeding, it's really not birth control. Like I said, I've never really talked about this, but yes. Don't be careful. If you're a breastfeeding mother, don't go and, be throwing it back. You gotta kind of relax sometimes, So yeah, 6 months later, I was pregnant again. Yes, I almost really just threw myself away because what? Because I knew how much I had already gone through and the baby was still a baby, I literally was just like, I do not think I could do this again. But thanks to me going online, seeing other mothers who had Irish twins, from them talking about their experience and just sharing online, it really helped me to be like, wow, okay, cool, maybe I can do this. Now, Ivana's pregnancy was actually not a really stressful pregnancy, to be honest, especially because at that time I had found TikTok. I was having fun, honestly. I really just was excited to see my girl because I was really excited to have a girl, because I had a boy. Amari was such a chill kid. I was like, oh good, he has a playmate, and I started. It took me a while, I'm not gonna lie. It took me a whole month to warm up, because when I found out I was pregnant with Ivana, I was already 10 weeks pregnant. So I was like, it took me a whole month to warm up to the idea that I was about to go through the newborn stage again and the labor stage. Getting the baby in is great, but getting the baby out? Bro, if it's the same process of getting the baby in, more women will have multiple children. But I came to terms with it. I came to terms with it because I knew it was a blessing. I knew I come from a place where I did not even think I was gonna have kids, and now I'm having 2 back to back. Thank God. You know what I mean? Thank God. Because let me tell you something, when you plan, God is like, oh, you think you have a say in anything that goes on in your life? Is a lie. Is a lie. So I was really, it took me a while, but I was really happy when I found out it was a girl. I was even happier because I was like, oh great, I have a girl and a boy. I mean, thank you God. I'm really thankful for this. She was due end of May, but she got born in the beginning of May. Again, pregnancy and labor is it's not just 9 months. You know what I mean? It's just what it is. And of course, if you guys have watched my other video where I really talk about all the mental health issues I went through after Ivana, you would really understand. But when I tell you Ivana was a different baby than Amari, I think because again, she wasn't born early or anything like that, the clinginess, her not wanting me to drop her, and this was immediate. This was immediate, almost immediately after she was born, she did not let me go anywhere. She always wanted to be on my chest, around me. Nobody else could carry her, nobody else except me. So that clinginess that I had not experienced with Amari and I was experiencing with Ivana, it just threw me off guard. And having 2 babies cry at the same time, and one baby confused as to why there's another baby, and not having, because the baby doesn't even talk, so you can't even explain to the baby oh, this is your baby sister. Yeah, sometimes Amari was just please move this thing, is it doll? So all that was very overwhelming. And then after I went through all the mental health things that I went through, that was just the everything. I couldn't take care of my kids. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I talk about my depression and everything that happened, but I really was so depressed I couldn't take care of my kids. And as a mom, for you not to be able to take care of your kids gives you the feeling of a different type of uselessness. And I'm only using that word because I remember at the time that's how I felt. There's a lot of mom guilt that comes with being a mom, when you feel you can't provide certain things for your kids, or when you feel your body isn't working the way it's supposed to, or when you feel tired and you can't get a day off no matter what. And then even into my transition of being a single mom, that was a different transition entirely, because then I started realizing oh wow, no matter how much help I have, these children are my responsibility. They are my responsibility. I'm their sole provider, protector, everything. And at first it really shocked me. it was very much of a shock. But after a while, I started getting used to the fact that, look, it is what it is. And I am very, very, very grateful for everything that has happened in my life. I'm very grateful for all the things that I've been through as a mom, because I really truly think that these children have not only changed my life in a positive way, but they've changed my life in a way that I feel like I am their protector, but really they helped me find myself. And now all I'm interested in is building them up emotionally, building them up spiritually, impacting values on them, and just for them to be able to go into the world and be upstanding citizens and be happy and be bold and be able to do whatever they want to do. So yeah, I did not expect this video to be this long, but I'm just gonna put a pin in it here. I do want to hear you guys' stories in the comments below as usual. Let's carry on the discussion. I want to know what truths you've learned about motherhood. I want to know the lessons you've learned. I'm willing to carry on the conversation on in the comments, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Bye.